Merry Meets everyone, Earthfire here. This month's theme is going to be beginner's tools and, beginner witchcraft. I've kind of not been wanting to do a beginner's series, just simply because I don't feel like it's my place to tell other people where their path needs to go. So my version of a beginner's information is going to be a lot different than other people's versions. So I'm not going to sit there and tell you that you need to do this, this, and this, and all of that stuff, because I do not believe that anyone can tell you what your path needs to look like. If you were to ask me, I could not give you a label to describe my path. My path is my own. It is formed by who I am and what my interests are and what I particularly, believe and all of that. And that is how your path should be. You should not follow a written schedule per se on how your practice should be. Your practice should be your own. You should make your practice out of things that you love and are interested in, not because it comes out of a book. So, like I said, I've been a little leery about wanting to do a beginner series, just simply because of that. But I have been getting a lot of beginner questions, so I thought I would go ahead and do it. And I hope that the way that I portray it comes across the way that it feels in my heart. I kind of feel like I'm at a loss, because, every other beginner video that you watch, or information period on beginners, it always gives you a specific way you have to do things, and I can't tell you that because I'm not you. As you guys know, with my my postings, I like to give you options. I like to be able to, kind of give you the basis, and you can take it and run with it. So that's kind of what I'm going to do with this series as well. I'm kind of going to give you a general basis on things, and I'm going to tell you how I do things, because I have some other videos, like I'm going to do, how to set up an altar, and how to set up a basic spell, how to get rid of spell remains, things like that. Things that you need to know in the beginning, but they're not concrete. You can, do them your own way. So in this video, I just wanted to get that out of the way. In this video, I'm going to go over basic tools. Now, this is just the general tools that any, how do I put this? That anyone may use in witchcraft. You don't have to use any of these tools, and I can tell you there's very few on this list that I actually use in my daily practice or in my practice period. I have a lot of things here that I own, but never use. And some I own and never use for the purpose that they're supposed to be used for. So I'm going to give you some other ideas. I encourage you to move beyond what everyone else is telling you. Think outside the box, and don't just go with what's pretty and what everybody tells you need to do and all of that. My practice is very centered on what is available to me, what means things to me, and not what everybody else thinks. It's not always pretty. This is my working altar, or this is my filming altar. This is where I do all my videos for any spell work that I'm doing or anything like that. I do have my working altar that is in my house. It is not near as big as this. It is overly crowded, and because I have a lot of little things that may not have anything to do with witchcraft, but they mean something to me. And you'll see that when I go through the altar setup, because I'm going to be redoing this altar here. And I'll have little things on my altar that don't really have anything to do with witchcraft, but they mean things to me. And I encourage you that if you have things that are, in your life that you want, that mean things to you, add them into your witchcraft. Like, I have these little clay figurines that my daughter made for me. Children are wholeheartedly open-hearted, and that is a magical thing in itself. So use the things that your children give you. Use the natural things that you find. Like this feather here is from our ducks. It shed it. We found they fly all over the yard. So not the ducks, but the feathers, they fly in the wind out of their cage, and I find them all over the yard. And this is a feather that my daughter found for me, and she gave it to me. It is from our male duck, and it's one of his silver feathers, so they're a little bit more rare to find than one of his, darker feathers. So I kept it, and it's on my altar. Not only does it represent, a gift from my daughter, a natural gift that I can use for the association of ducks, and the association of air. So it is on my little elements tray here to represent air, and didn't cost me a thing. So I encourage you to look when you're trying to come up with tools and stuff for new beginners. Think beyond what you can buy at the store. Think about what is in your local area, your backyard, your front yard, your neighborhood. Think of things that you can use in your practice that are local to you, because they're going to mean more than something that you bought from a store. And that is probably the best advice I could give you as a beginner, is not just rush off to the store and buy, what's pretty and what's popular, because that's not always going to be the thing that works the best. For me, I don't know if you just heard that, that is my duck. But for me, the natural items I can find in my environment work a hell of a lot better than something I could buy in a store. Of course, there's going to be items that you can't, find naturally, or you can't, make yourself, and, go and buy those items. But try and think out of the box when you are buying those items. Am I buying these because they're pretty and they say they're witchy, or am I buying them because they actually serve a purpose? So that is my little spiel on that. So I'm going to get on into the tools. I do have examples of these tools, at least the examples I have on hand. And I'm going to try and give you some ideas of moving out of the aesthetic version of tools. Yes, we all love pretty witchy things, but pretty witchy things cost a lot of money. And there are other ways to be accomplishing the same purpose. So my first one on my list is an altar. You do not need an altar. I'm just going to say that. Altars are convenient. I'll give you that. It's a place for you to come and kind of collect yourself and do your magical workings. So that's basically what an altar is. It doesn't have to have anything on it. It can be a little fold-out dinner tray, if that's what you got. It can be in a shoebox. It can be anything that you want it to be. It has to adapt to your lifestyle. You do not have to have these big antique desks that have all these witchy items on it. So I have several altars. I have my main altar, which is in my bedroom. It is very small. It is a little tiny, cheap computer desk that my husband got from Walmart for me. And that is due to the fact that we don't have a whole lot of space in our house. Our house is very tiny. And my altars have to adapt to our living space. And that's another thing I want you to understand, that your magical items need to adapt to your life and your living space and family and all of that. So my main altar is very tiny. I do have, if you were to look at it, it would look like it's packed to the brim, but a lot of the things that I have are given to me as gifts, mainly from my husband. So you'll see when you see this altar a lot of them are natural items. A lot of them, if they're more witchy type items, they were given to me from my husband. As, you know, a gift in the very beginning. My husband and myself both practiced, and my daughter practices, and so we have a pretty, you know, open witchy house. Outside of the house, we don't really know anyone who practices at all. So in the beginning, my husband, when I first started practicing, because he started practicing before I did, and he wanted to give me all the tools, so he just, you know, bought me all the tools that he thought that I would need in the beginning, because we weren't, when you're starting out, especially when we started out, all you got crammed down your throat was, you have to have all this and all this and this and this and this. And it turns out I use very rarely any of those items. Probably most of the ones on this list that I have for you, I use maybe 2, maybe 3. So back to altars. I have my main altar, which I said was very tiny. I have this altar, which I use for filming and, you know, stuff for Patreon. That's what this weird thing is over top, so it's, I can have proper lighting when I'm filming videos for you guys. And then I have a money altar, which is just a shelf out of a bookshelf. So when you're wanting to have an altar, try and sit down and think what fits into your life, what you have room for in your actual physical living space, and then go from there. I didn't have the space to have all of these things that I wanted on the same altar. So I made separate little spaces for what I wanted. So yeah, so when it comes to an altar, don't look at all the pretty pictures on Instagram or Pinterest or any of that. Think about what you have on hand, what can be used, and go from there. So your altar should be your magical space. It shouldn't be anybody else's. It should be what pleases you and what is functional to you. So the next thing is an athame. An athame is just a knife of some sort. It doesn't have to be some fancy, you know, medieval looking knife. It can be just a kitchen knife. It can be a, you know, fold up pocket knife or a hunting knife or anything that you find anywhere. Like I said, I have, you know, kind of the aesthetically pleasing ones because they were gifts from my husband. So this was probably one of the first things that he bought for me, was this, my athame. And my athame is, you know, an athame is just used to direct energy. just like a wand. So you can use it to, it's especially useful for beginners because it helps them focus their energy into what they're doing. It kind of, comes out on a point, and, it helps you visualize what you're doing. I do not use an athame for those reasons whatsoever. I use it for cutting candles, cutting cord, stuff like that. I don't use it as directing energy at all. So you could probably go and buy all of these things and then maybe find out later that you don't even remotely desire to use it that way. It's nice to have. I use it for cutting my candles for my, I take a little chime candle like this, and I cut it in threes, and I use those little pieces every week to do my prosperity workings for my money altar. It saves me money cutting the candles down. It works just the same, and that's pretty much what I use it for. Is just using it as a tool in my magical workings, not as using it as the tool that it's used for, to cut things, not as in directing magic. So like I said, your athame can be anything. You don't even have to have an athame. They are nice for using like I do. That way you don't have to pull out a kitchen knife to cut your candles or cut your cords or anything like that. It's just easy to have because it's already there. So if you do think that you're interested in athame, make sure it's something that appeals to you. Don't just go and buy the prettiest, biggest knife you can find. You probably won't use it as much as something that's more functional and appealing to your interest. This one is it is the perfect size for me. If my husband would have got me a large knife, I would never use it for anything. But this one I use for, I use it a lot more than what I would if it was larger. The only thing I don't wish about this knife is it's double-edged. It is sharp. So I wish it wasn't double-edged, because when I go to cut my candles, I have to push on the second edge, which is, as long as I'm careful, I'm fine. But this is what an athame looks like. There are, depending on where you're from, is depending on how things are pronounced. I have only ever heard it pronounced athame. It may be pronounced differently in different parts of the world. So don't get caught up in how pronunciations and all of that. So that's just another thing. So your athame. Your next thing is a besom. Now this is just a little altar broom. It is still a besom no matter what size it is. You can have, little altar brooms like this. You can have big, full-length brooms. It really doesn't matter. You don't even have to have a broom. I can honestly say I make brooms and I rarely ever use one. I prefer to smoke cleanse when I cleanse. I don't prefer to sweep. But I do have a couple. I have this little altar broom that my husband and I made, and we have a very large broom that we made, and it sits in my living room between the two doors. Besoms are used for cleansing. They're really great for cleansing out negativity in your personal space, your homes, your businesses, whatever you choose to use it in. They're also really good for home protection. So if you keep them near doorways or windows. Like I said, our large besom is hanging between, in the living room between the front door and the back door, which that space is very small, so it works for both doors. But besoms aren't really used to actually sweep the floor. They're just used to sweep the negativity. So I wouldn't actually like try and clean anything with a besom. I suppose if you had a actual broom, like a store-bought broom that you have cleansed and, you know, consecrated for that purpose, then you could go and sweep your entire house if you wanted, which is always an option. It does not have to be a natural made broom. I feel like I'm going to say this a million times. Your practice is your own. Use it however you see fit. So a besom is just to clean out unwanted energies from your home, and it's an energetic act. It's the same as smoke cleansing or water cleansing or anything like that. It's just a different version. So to do a cleansing with your broom, you would start at the topmost level at the back of your house. You would work your way forward, and then you would go downstairs and go to the back of the house and work your way forward, going through every room as you're doing it, every space, and you want to enchant as you're doing it. Something, you know, simple like, I cleanse this space of all negativity. I banish all negativity from this space. Something similar, simple, and, you know, like that. However you choose to do it. And then you're going to, on the bottom floor, you're going to work from the back to the front and out the front door. So you're going to push all of that negativity out the door. I know it's weird, especially if you live in a close neighborhood. Just quickly do it. No one notices. I do it all the time. I don't necessarily do my cleansing with a besom, but I do smoke cleanse the same way. And, you know, any type of house cleansing, you're going to be doing it, whether it's with a besom, with smoke or water or whatever it is that you're using. The cleansing is going to be the same way. You're always going to start at the back, at the top, and then work your way down, you know, from the back to the front. So always think outside the box when it comes to your tools. If you cannot get a hold of any natural items to make your own besom, which is what most people will tell you to do, and you don't have the money to buy one from someone, or don't feel like you need to, you can use a kitchen broom. The same way, I would go and I would get a specific broom just for that, and I would cleanse and consecrate it for your magical purpose of, you know, cleansing the home of negativity, and I would only use that broom for that specific purpose. So you could go and get a dollar store broom and do the same thing. I am not one of those people that are going to tell you you cannot use plastic. If that's all you got, by all means use it. But I would designate a specific broom for that purpose. I would not use my kitchen broom that I'm sweeping the floor with on a regular purpose, or on a regular basis for that. So if all you got is, you know, enough money to get your tools from the dollar store, then choose things that you could buy from the dollar store. I, by all means, encourage that, especially when it comes to permanent things that you're going to have. Please think, you know, don't think that it has to be a natural item. We don't live in a completely, totally natural world anymore, so the thoughts of that are just kind of unrealistic. We live in a highly plastic world, so if a plastic broom is all you got, then by all means use it. So one of the next tools, and I feel it's probably the most important tool that you could have for anything, is your Book of Shadows. This is the one tool I encourage everyone to have. And what your Book of Shadows is, it's just a place for you to record all of your practice, whether that be in a notebook, a binder, a journal, it doesn't matter. It's just a place for you to record all that you're learning and everything that you're doing. It's important because you're going to want that later on. When you look back on your practice 10 years from now, you're going to want to know what you did back then, and how you've evolved from that point on. So if I can encourage you to use any tool, it would be this one. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. It can be a 50-cent notebook from Walmart. It can be a binder. It can be a journal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it looks like. All that matters is that it calls to you. I have several here to show you. I have several different Books of Shadows. And you'll probably be surprised in the one that I use the most, which I consider to be my main Book of Shadows. It's the one that I go to for everything. You'll probably be surprised what it is. But I'm going to go ahead and go with some of my older ones first. Sorry, I have to lean over and grab it. So my very first Book of Shadows was this one. It is just a brown paper journal that I found at Walmart for I think like $4. And I didn't have a whole lot of money, so I just went to Walmart. I went to like the journal notebook section, and I just found one that was fairly cheap, that appealed to me, and I went from there. So this is just completely brown paper. It's completely blank, no lines or anything, and I just started writing in it. So this is the one where I dumped all of my information when I was first learning. I am one of those people that want to know all the things. So I don't feel that I'll ever stop learning. I'm always studying new ways I'm always studying new ways to practice and new ideas and all of that. And in the beginning, that's my personality. I just read all the information and started writing it down. I will admit most of the information when I started was Wiccan based. I am not Wiccan. Wicca did not appeal to me in any way. So I kind of wrote down all the information, and then as I went along, realized that this is not really the direction I wanted to go. When it got to the fact where, the one thing I don't like about Wicca, and don't get me wrong, Wicca is a great religion in itself, it's just not for me. But the one thing that turned me off was how it designated how you had to do everything. And that is one of the things that drew me to witchcraft to begin with, is I could make it my own. And with Wicca, I couldn't do that. So I never really got into Wicca. I did study it in the beginning, and then the more I got into it, realized it wasn't for me. I want to practice how I feel that I want to practice, not how it's, outlined that I need to do that. So I just started writing down everything, and I think that's what helped me figure out a little bit of the way my path was going to go. I kind of, did all the research and started recording all of it in my Book of Shadows, and realized, okay, this doesn't really fit into my life. This really doesn't make sense to me. You know, and all of that. And then I just, as my Book of Shadows progressed, I kind of got out of the recording of everybody else's stuff and started just recording my own stuff. I do still record information because that is my personality. I like to know all the things. But I will take the knowledge that I've learned from that and make it my own, not go off of what everybody else says I need to do. So this was my first. I suggest when it's your very first, you get a cheap notebook, get a cheap journal, something simple. The one thing I hated about this book is it's not lined. I am not the greatest writer, and I'm not the greatest speller, and the fact that it didn't have lines drove me crazy. And I wanted it to look pretty and nice and like everybody else's showed, and it didn't happen. So I found that I didn't finish it. I have tons of pages here that are just blank. So I moved on to something else. And my next journal was, or my next Book of Shadows was this one, was an art book. Once again, it's not lined, but it's just a plain art book. I got out of the art section at Walmart. It has white paper in it. It's not lined, so that didn't quite work for me either. But this one is kind of where I record all of my personal spell work, and it's kind of where I wanted to record all of my personal spell work, anything that pertained to my my magical practice at all. I have a journal section in here, so I've designated sections in it, and I also have a section for dream work, which I never really got into. I wanted to, but didn't. But mainly it's just a place for me to record my my own practices, my each individual spells, which I don't use this book nearly as often as I should. I found other ways that I prefer. So just a cheap art book. I think it was like 10 bucks. It was also a gift from my husband, and then I painted it how I wanted it because it was just a black book. So definitely keep that in mind when you're starting out, that things don't have to be this pretty leather-bound, tea-dyed Book of Shadows. It can be anything that you want it to be. And for me, what works the best is a binder. This is my go-to Book of Shadows. I hardly ever use those others anymore because this is where I collect all of my knowledge. I collect all of my spell work. Everything just goes in here. I really need a bigger one, and it's kind of old, and I've had to tape around it a little bit to kind of keep the plastic together, but this is my go-to. I can collect everything I want in here and not have to worry about messing it up. I can type it if I want to, which is a lot of the time I'll write out a spell, and once I'm I'm pleased with it, then I'll type it up and put it in my binder. All of the spell work that you guys get in your Book of Shadows is in here. Those are my personal spells, so it's all coming out of here, which works way better for me than any of those other books. I am drawn to doing it this way. I encourage to work with my Book of Shadows and add stuff to it and all of that, and record what I'm doing more than I was ever with those other books. So I encourage you, it's heavy, to think outside the box when it comes to your Book of Shadows. Get a binder. Start just writing out your spells. Type them if you, like me, hate your handwriting, or you don't spell very well. You can use your computer and just type it and print it out. I have tons of stuff that are just printed. There's my sour jar spell. I have them all separated with these little page dividers that I've, done little artistic things with, and I've labeled them. I have everything I could possibly need if I needed to grab something and go and want to just do spell work away from my home. This is what I would grab. I would grab it because I have everything that I need to know in here. So I encourage you to just, go on the cheap and start out with the simple things with your tools. And then if you want to upgrade later to a really nice leather-bound book, you can. But get into your practice first before you do that. Figure out what your practice is going to look like. You may find that paper products don't work for you and you need an online book of shadows, which that is always an option. If you're always on the go, then you can have a book of shadows on your phone, on your computer, and there are a lot of people that are technically inclined that prefer that, and that's perfectly fine. I am a paper person myself, so I like to have it in paper. But definitely, keep that in mind. Your book of shadows can look like anything you want it to be. It can be in the notes of your phone. It can be a book of shadows app that you have. It can be in a binder. It can be in a store-bought journal. And of course, it can be in a fancy leather-bound tea-dyed paper if you want it. But I encourage you not to go to that step right away. I encourage you to go on the cheap, figure out what your book of shadows is going to look and feel like, and then later on in your practice you can get that fancy book of shadows if you would like. So of course, your book of shadows is to record all your work, however you choose to do that. So I just encourage you to record everything. Even if it doesn't work, record it in your book of shadows. State that it didn't work, and then maybe come back to it later and try and figure out why it didn't work. Sometimes just things don't work, and it may be that your heart wasn't in it at the time. It may be that it wasn't the right timing for that specific spell to be working, and it may be that it just wasn't meant for you. But you can come back and you can look at that and say, okay, why wasn't this meant for me? Why can't I achieve this? And then figure out, maybe do a little journaling on the side and try and figure out why. What, maybe something's blocking you from it. Maybe you're blocking you from it. There's a million reasons why a spell doesn't work. Maybe your head just wasn't in it that day and you should try it again. So if you have all that recorded in your book of shadows, then you can go back to that and say, okay, maybe I need to do something a little bit different. Maybe this item didn't work. Maybe my head just wasn't in it, so I need to go a little simpler. I'm trying to overcomplicate things. You can go back and tweak old spells that maybe didn't work out the way that you wanted them to, and try them again. And also, later down the road, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you're going to look back at those beginning books of shadows, because this is going to grow and grow and grow. So you're going to have more than one. And look and see where you came from, where you started. You're going to want to know those things. And I wish that I had recorded more of my actual practice when I had started, and I didn't. I recorded a lot of the information, but I didn't record the actual things I was doing. So that is Book of Shadows. Now, I'm going to get into the difference between Book of Shadows and grimoires in a minute. So I probably should have put those close together. So I find that a lot of beginners are confused between the difference between a Book of Shadows and a grimoire. And a lot of people use them interchangeably, but they are different things. So what I just showed you is a Book of Shadows, and these are grimoires. So grimoires are any published book of spells that you can find. So anything like these. I know the Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs isn't really a book of spells, but it does have a lot of magical information, so I added it. But, you know, it's just, you know, published books that you can get, and it has spell work in it, per se. So, let's see. So, like this one's a true love spell. Here's some candle magic spells. And, you know, I'm not going to really go into depth of what these are because I don't even read these books. So, you know, you can have different candle spells. You can have any type of book that is a published book that you buy and you purchase that has spells in it or magical knowledge in it whatsoever, is a grimoire. So it's not a Book of Shadows. Your Book of Shadows is your personal recordings of your magical workings. A grimoire is a collection of magical knowledge and spells. So I did want to clear that up because that's very confusing, and I was confused in the beginning of what the difference was. So that is the difference of those. A lot of people will use them interchangeably like they're the same thing, and I think that's just lack of knowledge. It's no big deal. Call it what you want, but, you know, your Book of Shadows is very special and significant to you. A grimoire is not. It's just knowledge. So, okay, so the next thing are candles. So candles can come in any shape, size, color that you want. It will depend on what you're doing, what color you use. So I have several different ones to show you here. So you can use whatever candles that appeal to you or are available to you. There's tons of different ways you can use it. You can do little tea lights, which are these small little candles. You can get them anywhere. They're usually pretty cheap. Unfortunately, they don't come in a whole lot of colors normally. But, you know, you'll want to get a color correspondence chart for, you know, whatever candle you're using. And, of course, you can always use white if you don't have, you know, any other colored candle. White goes for, you know, it can be substituted for any candle. So you can use tea lights. They're usually a very quick and fast way of doing it. I can't say that I feel they're the most potent, but you can use them. The next step up would be chime candles. I have two different sizes here. I'm not sure if this is called a different type, but I consider it a chime candle because it's kind of the same. But chime candles look like this. They're just, you know, short and skinny. They're not like the pillar candles, but they're smaller. So you can use chime candles. You can use pillar candles. I use pillar candles a lot on my daily workings because I'm cheap, and it's something that will last a long time, and when it's something that I'm going to be continually working on, like my daily protection candle, I will use a pillar candle for that. So you can use plain old pillar candles, and you can pretty much find them anywhere. Sometimes it's hard to find them in the colors that you want, but if you look, sometimes if you look according to seasons, that helps. You can use glass candles. These are more readily available now at like Walmart and stuff. They don't have a big variety of them, but you can get different ones. And you can also get the like Christian glass candles and just peel off the labels if they have a corresponding color that you like. But they're just 7-day glass candles. These are usually something that's burned over a longer period of time. So you have just your regular basic candle. This is my working candle for out here. It doesn't really pertain to anything. It's the candle I light when I need to light other things. But you can have a candle like this that, you know, whatever you're using for your work. And then you can use figure candles. I don't own any figure candles. You can get figure candles in male and female, you know, animals, all kinds of different stuff. I have an egg candle here because I happened to find it at the Dollar Tree during Easter. And you know, an egg candle is really great for fertility and abundance. But you can use all kinds of different figure candles. And of course, you know, candles are used for your magical workings. I'm not going to really get into that. You know, it's just a way to focus your energy into, you know, your intention and all of that. So the next thing I'm going to move on to is cauldrons. This is another tool that I think you should have something similar to it, is a cauldron. Some sort of burn-proof dish. I'll put it that way. So I have this little tiny cauldron that my husband got me. It's very cute. I use it to hold my sage when I'm, you know, smudging the house and all of that. So it holds my sage. These are great, but they're very expensive. Even these little tiny ones can run you $50 depending on where you're going. So I encourage you to kind of think out of the box. As long as it is a fireproof as long as it is a fireproof dish, you're good. So my main cauldron that I use is this little cast iron pot. It's a little cooking pot. I got it out of the sports section at Swartzman's Warehouse. We paid way more than I had hoped for it. They're way cheaper now online. You can find them anywhere. You can just looking like camping supplies. But, you know, I wanted a cast iron one, and back in the day, this was the only thing I could find that would work. So if you can go to yard sales or thrift stores and find cast iron pans and pots, if you can find them on the smaller side, then that's perfect for your cauldron. All your cauldron needs to be is to be able to burn things in it. So it needs to be fireproof. If you have a regular pan or pot that you want to use, you can use that too. If you have like a copper pot, that would be perfect. If you were only able to find a regular pot that you buy in the kitchen section somewhere, then use that. It does not have to be cast iron. It does not have to be fancy and cauldron looking like. It can be whatever you want, as long as it's fireproof. That's all that matters. So what would you use your cauldron for? You would use it for burning petitions and bay leaves and incense and stuff like that. You can also use it to water scry in, but you need to be very careful if it's cast iron to do that. You need to make sure you get it very dry afterwards, and you know, use all of the cast iron precautions. You want to make sure that your cast iron is well seasoned before you add any water to it, or you know, anything like that. Cauldrons are also used for banishing spells. Like I said, water scrying. You can, you know, light a charcoal disc in here and burn loose incense. You know, if you've made your own loose incense for a specific spell, then you can burn that. Any of my herb powders that I have, or herb mixtures that you know, that are in any of my postings, you can put those on a charcoal disc and burn those. In your cauldron, you can, like I said, you can burn bay leaves. Bay leaves are great for wishing spells, or, you know, they're, you can just write what your intention is on the bay leaf and burn it in your cauldron. It's really great for that. You can, anything that you're going to be burning, you can use your cauldron for. There's probably a million other ways to use your cauldron that I can't think of. But, like I said, I encourage you to think outside the box of what a cauldron looks like and use whatever it is, as long as it's fireproof. You'll be good. So the last thing that I have on my list is wands. So I have a couple different wands here. They're both gifts from my husband. This was my first wand. It looks very much like a vampire stake. But he liked it and he gave it to me as a gift. And it's very beautiful, and I've added some extra stuff to it when I got it. I added some crystal and a little pinnacle there. And then this one, which I'm in the process of refinishing, is one that my husband also purchased for me. It's more like a Harry Potter wand, but it was a color that I didn't like, so I was refinishing it, and this one came out way too dark, so I was in the process of sanding it and haven't finished that yet. But your wands can look like anything. They can be store-bought, they can be a stick that you have, you know, picked up from nature or your yard or any of that. It can be made from glass. It can, the sky's the limit. It can be made from crystal. Anything that you can use to direct your energy. And that is what a wand is used for, is to direct your energy into the intention that you're using it for. So prosperity, love, luck, stuff like that. It's just a tool to direct your energy. That's all it is. Very much like the athame. They work the same way. I rarely ever use my wand. Ever. They're mainly just trinkets that, you know, sit on my altar. But, you know, I'm grateful I have them. I did start working with them to begin with, and it just wasn't for me. I'm much more of a tactile person. I want, you know, to do things with my hands, and that works much more, that works much better for me than trying to direct it through something else. And that's the reason why I don't use, you know, my athame or a wand or a staff or anything like that, is because I want to have my hands in it. So if you are a person who needs that, something to focus your energy with, a wand or an athame or a staff will work really great for you. I'm just not one of those people. So that is what, you know, a wand is used for. Your wand can be made out of anything. Don't listen to those people that says it has to be made from this certain tree and at this certain time and this certain way. It can be made from anything. You can make a wand from a stick that you found in your yard, and it will work. It can be a Harry Potter wand if you have one, and I have several. So if that's all you got, is that Harry Potter resin wand that you got from wherever, as a, you know, a trinket, you can use that to direct your energy. It can be made from glass, it can be made from crystal, it can be made from, like I said, anything. So don't listen to the ones that tell you it has to be made from a certain type of wood and it has to be blah, blah, blah. Some people will tell you that your wand has to be given to you as a gift. Some people will tell you that you have to purchase it yourself. Some people will tell you have to purchase it in person. You can't purchase it online. Go with what you feel is right. If it's a stick out of your yard, then use that. If it is a wand that you found online for a reasonable price, go with that. If it calls to you, that's what matters, is whether it calls to you. So definitely, keep in mind the natural items around you, as I've said probably a billion times in this video. But I can't express that enough, how important it is just to use what's in your environment. So that is the last tool that I've come up with. I did mention staffs. Staffs are very much the same way, used the same way as a wand or an athame. They're used to direct energy. I don't have a staff. I do have a piece of wood picked out for one, but I have not made it yet, so I didn't have one to show you. And that will just strictly be because I want one, not because I'll use it to direct my energy. Like I said, I'm a very tactile person. I like to, use my hands to direct energy into my spell working and all of that. So I hope this video was helpful and that it's not been a million hours long. I feel like I've been talking for a while. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Like I've said probably a million times in this video, make your tools and your practice your own, not other people's. Not what looks pretty, not what is popular. Use what works for you and what fits into your life and your space and your personality, because if you don't, you're just wasting your money. As you've seen, I've shown you many tools here that I own but don't use, and in the end they were kind of a waste of money. Basically, the only tools that I've shown you that I use is my cauldron, my book of shadows, and candles. So and my altar. I use altars, but like I said, make it your own, make it fit into your life and your space, and you will be much happier. I'm going to leave it here, and I hope everybody is doing well, and I will see you next time. Blessed be.